that we have created something that didn't exist before, and it has kind of we've created a footwear culture in Detroit. We have graduates now, they're starting their own businesses. We have a club, where we get together and talk about what we are working on. So that's a really important achievement for me.
Welcome to the Kicks Factory. I am your host, Omar Bailey, footwear design, entrepreneur, and creator. But this show isn't about me. This show was created to tell you stories of those who are doing extraordinary things in the sneaker game. We're also here to celebrate and discuss footwear design and creation with the creators themselves. Welcome everybody to the Kicks Factory. Welcome back. Thank you again for all the support to this point. The show has been going great. We've been loving all the feedback, so keep it coming. We have a special guest here for you today. You're in for a treat. I would like to introduce this gentleman. We met a few years ago at a footwear conference in San Diego, I believe. He's a designer, educator, author, and currently the chair of the fashion and accessories department at my alma mater, the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome to the show, Mr. Aki Choklat. Now, did I say that right? Did I get that right?
Absolutely beautifully, and thank you so much for inviting me to be in your beautiful world.
Yeah, no worries. Let's jump right into it. And let's get to know you a little bit. Let the listeners get to know you a little bit. Tell us about yourself, where you're from. I hear an accent. Sounds like New Jersey or like the East Coast to me. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Finland. I was born and raised in a little town a few hours from the border of Russia called Jyväskylä. I'm actually a child of a multicultural family. My father is from Northern Africa, from Morocco. This is why I have a little bit unusual name. People think that it's an artistic name, but it really is my name. But it's really funny because Aki is the Japanese girl's name. So when they see me, they're a little bit confused. And my last name, Chocolate, I mean, who knows what that,
Oh, that can take you in all kinds of directions.
Or whatever, yeah. But it is my real name. Maybe I'm all of that inside, I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's a fantastic name. I don't know much about Finland other than Valtteri Bottas because I'm a massive Formula One fan. So shout out to Valtteri. Yes, there are a lot of very interesting things about me, and I'm into a lot of really random things. But logistically, where in Europe is Finland? Like, give us an idea of the listeners who've never heard of it or not really exactly sure where it is.
Sure. Well, we are in Scandinavia geographically. Culturally, we are kind of like our own little world, our own nation. We are squeezed between Russia, the part of Sweden and Norway. So we are actually on Arctic Circle. So it gets sometimes very, very cold. So we're very, very north. But I think this is why there's a lot of great designers that come from Finland, and because we have a lot of time to do nothing but think and design. And there's actually one of the only footwear BFA programs in Scandinavia and Baltic countries is in Finland. So there's actually a whole footwear culture that comes out of that.
Interesting. No, that's cool. And I think you're being very modest by saying sometimes it gets cold. I'm sure more times than not it's probably pretty cold there. But nonetheless, it sounds like a wonderful place. And one place that I've never been to and visit. I would love to get there at some point in time. So talk about your passion for design. You mentioned that there are some great designers who came from the area. I didn't know that. So it'd be nice to hear about maybe who are some of the people that inspired you to pursue this passion.
Well, I've been asked often why footwear, and when I was a little boy, I was completely obsessed with American cowboy boots, and I never understood why. I drew all my textbooks full of cowboy boots when I was in my math class, hence failing math and every other subject. but I was very good at, drawing shoes, and I never understood why until 2 years ago. My father told me, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, when you were 2 years old, I bought you a pair of red cowboy boots, and you slept in them. You refused to." So, okay, mystery unsolved. So it's my father that, sort of pushed me this direction. I come from a very creative family, so it was always in our blood to be creative, design. And I decided that I don't want that to be my life, so I went to study international relations and politics in Utah.
Wow. What do you think about well, hold on. So hold on, say it one more time. International relations and politics.
Yeah.
In Utah. Okay. So how did you make that pivot, and I mean, Utah had to be a massive culture shock coming from Finland. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's a really pretty long, complicated story, but
give me the short version.
Okay, I always dreamed of being in America, and I was involved with this sort of a group of Mormons in my hometown, and I joined. And sort of when you think of America, you think of like what the media feeds you, and Utah was kind of it, So I decided that I don't want to be creative. I want to be really corporate and have a steady kind of a life, because I saw that my family, it wasn't so easy to be in a creative environment. But obviously nature won. So once I got to Utah, and once I did my congressional internship, I actually ended up on Capitol Hill. I realized that I'm not fit for this, and I wanna go back to what I love the most, which is fashion. So that's my journey and my story.
Wow, you're listening to the Kicks Factory. I am here with Mr. Aki Choklat. So you said something. I want to circle back to something that you just said about one, making it to Capitol Hill is an incredible achievement. Whether you wanted to be there or not, or if you learned that you didn't really like it and wanted to sort of go back to fashion. But you touched on something that I want to circle back to, and that was it being difficult to pursue a creative career within your family, or just where you grew up. Could you dive into that a little bit more and just maybe talk through like the why and maybe some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I mean, again, I come from a very humble, pretty rural background. We didn't have running water. We didn't have inside toilets. We had to use an outhouse, and we, heated the house with, wood. So it was a very sort of a humble background. And of course, you kind of a dream of a better life. And we were always happy. I had an amazing childhood. I mean, my father's a painter, artist. Mm-hmm. So we kind of earned our money from little jobs and selling art, etc. But I kind of very early on realized that that's maybe not the most secure and steady life unless you become like a Picasso or something. And even then, you probably have to die first and become famous. So I was like, that's not an option for me.
Right.
So I just kind of wanted to have a steady corporate life, and in the end, it did work to my benefit, because I learned so much from my education and my corporate career. I ended up working at American Express for over 10 years, and the political international relations diplomatic education I got actually made me survive our industry. You've had a brand, and you know what it is to dealing with everybody from customers to factories and everything between.
Right. Wow. No, that's great. Good story. And I can totally relate to to some of the things that you mentioned, and we're gonna take a little bit of a dive into that in a bit. But first, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna get into Mr. Choklat's design career.
Welcome back to another episode of Sell or Fail.
Your money has to work for you.
We want to talk about from the nitty to the gritty, where if you ain't selling,
you failing.
If you crushing sales at any level, you've thought about writing a book.
Stay on point like a javelin and sharper than a Ginsu knife.
A type or B, sales is the great equalizer.
And if you ain't selling, you failing. Let's get this money. On this podcast, if you don't sell, you do what, William?
You fail.
That's all it is to it.
That ice cream ain't gonna sell itself.
Let's make it happen.
Car sales is kind of like the foundation of sales, if you will.
Yeah. This is Sale or Fail. We'll be right back at you.
Kadzukian. Check out all your Kadzukian favorites now. Download the Kadzukian app, available on Android and iOS.
Factory. I'm your host, Omar Bailey, here with my guest, Mr. Aki Choklat. I love saying your name, by the way. It just rolls right off my tongue. It just makes me, I feel a lot smarter when I say your name. So
it puts people in a good mood.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You summed it up right there. It puts me in a good, every time I say it, it's like, man, that just feels really, really good. So your parents did something right with that, right? Well, many things right, but definitely they nailed that one. So one question I like to ask my guests is, as I understand and learn a little bit more about them, is, did you find footwear design, or do you think footwear design found you?
I think footwear design as a profession and a creative career absolutely found me.
Mm-hmm. Elaborate.
Okay, and the way that happened was that I just didn't know whether that was kind of even a job, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And my sisters and I, when we were living in New Jersey, you got that accent. I know it's changing a little bit.
I knew I heard a little bit of New Jersey in there.
So I was, late in the 90s working on Manhattan, and I lived in New Jersey, and my sisters lived with us for a while, et cetera, et cetera. We started this little fashion collective between three of us, and we started selling our items in Soho in New York. South, there was a little market in Houston Street. That's what I call it, Houston.
Yep, you got it, Houston. Yep, I was very confused by that too when I first moved back to New York as well. But
so my parents at that point living in Morocco, we sent them designs. They got them manufactured in Moroccan souks, and we sell them in the street market. And to my utter shock and surprise, people bought my little slippers and babouche type of shoes with the sporty outsole.
Okay.
I was like, okay, great. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to start a label. And Italian shoe manufacturer stopped at our table and said, we can make this in our factory, and we think it would be very successful. And that's when my brand Jubaki was born, because his name was Jub and my name is Aki, so we started calling it Jubaki.
Oh, awesome.
So it really started, but it was a bit of a wrong start, to be honest.
Okay, well, that's actually a perfect segue into my next question. So you started this company, Jubaki. Did I say that correct? Jubaki. Yeah. You started that in 2001, I believe, and it later sold 11, 12 years later in 2012. And, this is a dream that any designer or a creator or a business owner has, is be able to start something and be able to sell it. You were also the entire operations department. You did management, you did sourcing, you did the sampling, you traveled to Portugal, Italy, and the UK. You did all that work. It's a lot of work. I've been there before too. Tons of heavy lifting. Just the sleepless nights, the multiple nights in a row and staying up. Tell me a little bit about that. That experience, especially for those who are listening who want to start their own brands one day.
Yeah, I was reflecting on that a little bit the other day, because I'm constantly like, oh, maybe I should start this or start that. And I unfortunately have started a couple other things, but not in a major dive in. I think when you have a dream, sleepless nights, sleepless weeks, sleepless months, it kind of doesn't matter, because you're really doing something you're obsessed with. And I think if you start your own label, obsession is a really important word. But you have to also, find this sort of work-life balance, which I absolutely did not have.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you share the same thing. Your house is full of shoe stuff, from lasts to half stiff, glue bottles to fab, material, leather. It's just all of it. Like your house becomes a mini factory. Mm-hmm. So, but I was just so excited and so obsessed, and I started my label. Yes, I actually started thinking about it already in the mid-90s, and I formally started a company, because I didn't know you have to do that. So I formally started a company in 2001. And I had already moved to Europe at that point. But what I really realized from this experience was that I had no idea what I was doing, and I was losing a lot of money. I was taken advantage of. Within a year from that encounter in New York, I was at the Milan Shoe Fair showing my collection without any contracts, any agreements. So I made a lot of mistakes. And then somebody said to me that maybe you should study footwear or fashion. That's what I mean, like it actually kind of found me. And I decided to do that. So I went to Central St. Martin's for a short course, and then I ended up at the Royal College of Art, which was a really, really super big honor for me because I knew it was a very difficult institution to get into.
You're listening to the Kicks Factory. I'm your host, Omar Bailey, here with Mr. Aki Choklat. So, you know, how did your like political career, or when you sort of dived into that, I'm curious to know like if that played a role, or did you find anything that you learned from that time to help you getting into footwear? Like I can imagine, at least for me, like sounds like maybe some of the communication skills that you developed in talking to people and some of the ones, but yeah, tell me a little bit if there was anything that you thought that helped you as you were figuring the business out that you learned previously in your past career.
Absolutely. I mean, I was kind of setting myself up for a diplomatic career. I really wanted to be a cultural attaché or work in an embassy somewhere or something like that. And it's kind of like nature one, because I remember I did my internship on Capitol Hill, and it was just a crazy experience to really understand how crazy the world of politics really is. But I remember things like Elizabeth Taylor. She came for the AmFAR one of the first hearings, and I was instantly like, oh, I love her scarf, I love her shoes. It's kind of like care less about, like, of course I care about the cause, but I was always, and then I remember people like, I think Ted Kennedy's like, oh, he's wearing, brown brogues. So obviously I was like not in a right position. But to answer your question, I mean, it has helped so much because I ended up working on at American Express customer service. When you deal with people's money, especially celebrities, I was working at 60 Minutes at CBS as a kind of a travel agent type of a person between the celebrities and the travel arrangements and their disputing their credit card charges. Believe me, you become a diplomat in this kind of a world very quickly. And using those kind of skills with business world is very valuable, and also with education.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I'm always curious about what people do in previous careers who then later move into a creative field and see sort of what some of the overlap is that they take with them. That's really interesting to hear and good to hear, good to learn about you. So going back to your business, Jubaki, and I really like to paint a picture for the listeners, particularly those who aspire to have their own brands and businesses one day. I want you to talk a little bit about just sort of the day-to-day, and also you referred to some of the trade shows, talk about that, going to the trade shows and meeting with the customers and, dealing with the orders and dealing with the factories. It's not easy. It's a lot of heavy lifting. Could you take a little bit more of a deeper dive into that? Maybe walk us through sort of what it was like being at those shows and how difficult it was. Everyone thinks you just set up a booth and you're just getting orders left and right. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, it has completely changed. I was lucky enough to experience that sort of a very romantic mid to late 90s Italian shoe manufacturing world where, you smoked everywhere and you went to these amazing showrooms in Italy and everything was like fabulous. And then something really big happened. And a lot of, especially younger listeners, maybe don't realize this, but September 11th, it changed everything. Like all of a sudden, money stopped going to Italy for shoe manufacturing. It was just one of those moments where I realized that I have to think how to go about dealing with this. It's no longer easy after that. So yes, going to trade shows is a really important part of getting orders, but also that started to change. People, we were kind of weird in the late 90s, like we were shoe designers and we had our own labels. And people, they were not that many. Then after 2003 or 4, like everybody's a shoe designer, you know, Paris Hilton, Jessica Simpson, everybody became a shoe designer. And the manufacturing became like very easy. So, but yeah, day-to-day operations, going to trade shows is amazing. You met these fantastic buyers. I thought like this is easy. You know, I got the best clients, Harvey Nichols, Barney's, Berder and Goodman, Takashimaya, all the dream boutiques I wanted. You know, they were all there and they ordered small collections, but still it was great. Anthropology.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you deal things like, oh, you send 200 pairs and there's a problem with the stamp inside the shoe. So then all of a sudden it becomes a huge problem. So there's a lot of things that it's not so easy, I realized in the end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But and you alluded to it, you know, when you're on those shows, it's really exciting and you're seeing all the stuff happening. You know, it's sort of this moment where you feel like you did, you know, you made it. So it's great. And thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what Mr. Choklat is doing today.
Hello and welcome to R&R on Sports.
This is a very special day. We've got some very special young ladies joining us here. We want to hear about sports from a lady's perspective.
I'm just happy to see athletes utilizing their platforms to amplify what we do on a day-to-day basis.
We've seen, you know, Jesse Owens, his race and the political implications. Jim Brown has been vocal. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali. We can go on and on and on about athletes entering into the political and having a positive impact.
44 was a huge advocate for sport. So we'll see.
I don't think Biden's gonna be shooting ball in the back, dog.
No, he strikes me as the golf type.
Kadzukian. Check out all your Kadzukian favorites now. Download the Kadzukian app, available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to the Kicks Factory. I'm your host, Omar Bailey, here with Mr. Aki Choklat. So just circling back before we jump into what you're doing today, one thing I get asked all the time is, how do you get into stores? And you know, today is like a much different time with like e-commerce and all the online stuff. Probably doesn't hold the same value that it once did. But what were, you know, and the ways that I got some of my products in stores was just the old-fashioned way, through cold calling. Tell me a little bit about sort of what that experience was like for you when you were looking to get into retailers, and also the first time you seen someone wearing your own product and what that felt like.
Oh, I remember that moment very, very clearly. It was in a bus stop in Wood Green in North London. It's actually the area where I live. I saw a gentleman wearing my shoes, and Jubaki was a very particular kind of a look. And this was absolutely, I knew the leather, we used beige deer skin. I remember the highlights of it. Then to see that was just like, it was so validating, you know, that somebody, you know, it's a real honor for us that somebody is working in a job, whether it's a great job or in a really crap job, and the hard-earned cash they put into something that you have created. I mean, that is such an honor, and we should never forget that. Absolutely. That people make a slight sacrifice often to purchase your product. So that was great. Another big moment was when I went to spy on Harvey Nichols to see somebody carrying 3 boxes to the cash, you know, to the register of your product was just really amazing. So yeah, the scene has changed a little bit. Back then, it was really like you had to be really kind of a tough and keep calling buyers, begging them to see your product, asking them to come to use all the trick in the book to get them into your, you know, booth or your showroom. In Venetian hotels, we were in a hotel room, so it was kind of like being almost like a prostitute. So we, you know, had to like attract them to our room to come and have a look at our product, and you know, it's odd, you know, there's like your bed and then there's like your shoes, but you know, we were all on the same floor, so it was okay.
Yeah.
Today, my best advice is that also, you know, setting up direct-to-consumer system, it's not easy. There's all kinds of state tax issues. So I think it's best to connect with a platform that already exists if you want to start your direct-to-consumer selling. Of course, you can try things out on eBay, Depop, and all these kind of places. But I like to still have a product in brick and mortar because it's good it's kind of like a PR in a way.
Absolutely.
It's good to have it like somewhere and also get, consumer feedback from the shop owner. So I think that for making money, I think direct to consumer is the way to go, to be honest.
Yeah.
Everybody's shopping online now. And having a couple pieces in key places, maybe do collaborations, maybe do exhibitions. This is kind of like everything I do right now.
Yeah, gotcha. No, and that's a great strategy, right? As well as like, focus, invest into your direct consumer strategy, but also, try and focus on the key accounts that will work best for your product. So it makes total sense and great advice to those young people out there who are looking to start their brands. I want to jump into what you're doing today, and let's talk about CCS, the College of Creative Studies. As I mentioned, one of my alma maters. Shout out to Cincinnati, my other alma mater. Gosh, that was a tongue twister. So I went to school there at CCS for a couple years in Detroit. That was also a massive culture shock for me, coming from South Florida, going to Detroit, Michigan, to that extreme cold that all about. When I was there, footwear was something that just a few people did. It was and then you would hear stories about folks who were in automotive and they didn't make the cut, so they just sort of made the transition into footwear because it was this natural progression or transition, which I never really fully understood. But tell me a little bit about what you're doing today. You were appointed the department head of the fashion accessories department. There's a lot of really fun and exciting things that I'm hearing about through you and conversations that we had. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I got a call about 5.5 years ago from a headhunter that I actually know from Royal College of Art Times. And I was like, aren't you kind of late to calling me for a job? And she was like, this is a great opportunity in America. And I was like, oh, I'm not interested. I already lived in the US and I'm really settled in Europe. And she said, it's in Detroit. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds kind of cool because Detroit has a really kind of good reputation in Europe as far as being edgy. And of course, I come from that techno generation.
I was very surprised by your reaction and what you said. I feel like most people usually have the opposite reaction, but that's really cool to hear that was the way people thought of Detroit back in Europe.
Yeah. So I was like, well, maybe I can just go and have a look. And so I flew in for the kind of a job interview, and I did not fall in love with the, slushy mid-February motorway from the airport to the college. But when I saw the college, I was really blown away. And they showed me the floor, the empty 6,600 square foot floor. And they said, well, you can create whatever you want here for accessories. And I thought, wow, I'm this guy from Finland, from a little town. And the board kind of selected me to be one of the candidates. I was super honored. And I thought, I'll never get an opportunity like this again. So I instantly in my mind said, yes, of course I negotiated a little bit. And then I was offered the position. So the focus is accessories, and it is whatever complements apparel and footwear, handbags, etc. But we are all a lot of us are very, very footwear obsessed. So footwear has become a very central to a lot of the activity on the floor. We also do have great bags, of course. We cannot forget that. So we offer a BFA in it, and I'm just fully invested in this experience, and I spend most of my time trying to make it the premium destination in the world for accessories and footwear design.
That's awesome. You're listening to the Kicks Factory. I'm here with Mr. Aki Choklat. So what do you think about the school? What was it like? Let's talk a little bit just about sort of the culture. Like I remember when I went to school there, and it was very much so, staying up, pulling all-nighters and your projects, and just really taking ownership and of your work. And it was also extremely competitive. I'll never forget just a short story when I showed up and we had our orientation, And I remember the head of the department at the time, I can't remember his name, but he asked everyone who was interested in automotive design and who wanted to be a car designer to raise their hand. And of course, it was like 90% of the people in the auditorium of the 400 that were in there said that they want to be in automotive design. And he said, each one of you have a better chance at playing professional football in the NFL. And I will never, ever, ever forget that. So that really set the stage for how competitive this program was going to be for me going forward. Is it still like that? Like, what's the culture like? What's the vibe like on the campus? I know there's been a lot of upgrades, which I want to get into that with my next question, but tell me a little bit about that.
I think they still do the same thing from orientation. I think it's a little bit of a fear tactic. I come from a European, fashion education. I've been teaching in London College of Fashion, in De Montfort University, in Polymoda, in a lot of places, and I had to kind of I wanted to do something differently. I really wanted to create an open, safe environment for these new generations that have new ways of learning. I mean, technology, Omar, has changed a lot since you were there. I don't know what year you were there, but
2001.
Okay, so the internet has really exploded since.
Yeah, it was barely a thing when I was there.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of different new tools we can use, but I really wanted to create, maybe it wasn't even initially in my mind, but we kind of created a family, and everybody is welcome. Everybody's welcome to participate. We have a lot of students that do come from product design. We have a little bit separated that, that sort of a performance sneaker world remained in product, and we are focusing more on a creative fashion product. And the two worlds obviously merge often. Right. So the big difference is that our students have to make everything from beginning to end. And in product design is very much focused on the actual design and rendering, etc. So it's really great to see these two worlds become together in that somewhere in between world. We also have students from transportation design that come to us. We just have a huge factory, small factory, but a huge laboratory on our floor.
Yeah, and I want to get into that in just one second, because I remember when I was there. So yeah, back in 2001, when I was there, it was a lot of we just had a wood shop, and that was it. And you made everything there. And I remember making everything from toasters to shot radios to chairs, and of course shoes out of foam models and whatnot. And you just mentioned about the development center factory that you had. That would have been amazing if something like that existed when I was there. So I'm a little bit jealous, but still nonetheless very happy that it exists there, and hopefully I'll get a chance to get there at some point to see it in the future. So let's dive into that and tell me a little bit about that. And you were talking about some crossover. Sounds like the automotive guys are coming over and wanting to sort of dibble and dabble into that world, when it was definitely more of the opposite when I was there. But talk to me about this factory and how it's set up, and how you even got to that point of having such a great resource.
Well, again, I had experience in various other colleges where we didn't have such space and those kind of budgets, and there was basically a budget put aside for purchasing machinery and components. So little by little we built. Like I said, it was an empty 6,000 square foot space, and now it's pretty full space. So the first thing we did was investigate, first of all, for me, where do you buy tools in America? I had no idea. So it was a lot of research. Where do you buy lasts? Well, nobody makes lasts. Well, maybe there's a couple smaller places, but we had to outsource the lasts from Mexico, Italy, and Portugal. There's a lot of sort of learning from us as well. But we basically, in the end, ended up investing close to $400,000 on machinery just for the departments. With sewing machines, we have an atom flash cut, which is used in factories.
Amazing.
It is amazing. It's an absolute game changer for the quality of product. I think only Arsutoria in Milan has it, but I know that it's only the operator who can use it there. With us, the students can use it.
That's awesome.
Actually surprisingly resilient. It's not so hard to
Oh yeah, no, it's a very user-friendly piece of equipment and a great resource, and great that they're learning how to develop that skill.
Yeah, that was the kind of like my little secret trick, is to connect craft with tech, and students get really excited about the problem solving of tech, and then seeing like an outcome in material. So it's been really, really successful in that sense. But since you were here, we bought a whole new building and a whole new campus. So you have to come back. It's that we're in the new, it's 1930s Albert Kahn building. It's beautiful, huge loft spaces, 11th floor. Are you still jealous?
Yes, I am. Well, send me that invite. I'll be over there, but it's gotta be in the spring or the summer, or early fall. Yeah. So tell me about the future of CCS. What do you see, 5-10 years from now as it relates to, footwear, fashion, accessories? Like, what are some of the goals? What are some of the things you guys are looking forward to?
Well, I'm taking a little bit of the Gucci Prada approach, Coach also. I mean, it's all founded on craft of accessories and footwear, and then build a sort of a fashion house on top of that. And I'm taking the same approach. So we were finally approved to introduce apparel. So we're offering a BFA in fashion as of 2022.
Wow.
So it was also important that we are not just sort of isolated as a fashion accessories unit. We wanted to be part of the bigger culture of fashion. And the way to do that was to introduce fashion apparel into our programming as well. And it's one of the most requested majors, so it made also kind of a sense to offer that.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're doing. But every student that enters our program, even if they want to become a wedding dress designer, they have to take an accessories semester, because it is such an important part of the bigger picture of fashion. So that's the next, that's plenty for the next 5 years.
That's awesome. I'm getting more and more jealous every time I hear this. Gosh, that is such literally night and day from when I remember being at school there. But I'm just so proud of the school, the students, and yourself. You seem to really be making a lot of positive change there, and that's fantastic. We're gonna take a little bit of a break and pay some bills, and when we come back, we're gonna jump into Mr. Aki's legacy and talk about his future.
Welcome back to another episode of Sell or Fail.
Your money has to work for you.
We want to talk about from the nitty to the gritty, where if you ain't selling,
you failing.
If you crushing sales at any level, right, you've thought about writing a book.
Stay on point like a javelin and sharper than a Ginsu knife.
A type or B, sales is the great equalizer.
And if you ain't selling, you failing. Let's get this money. On this podcast, if you don't sell, you do what, William?
You fail.
That's all it is to it.
That ice cream ain't gonna sell itself.
Let's make it happen.
Car sales is kind of like the foundation of sales, if you will.
Yeah. This is Sell or Fail. We'll be right back at you.
Kadzukian. Check out all your Kadzukian favorites now. Download the Kadzukian app, available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to the Kicks Factory. This is Omar Bailey with my fantastic guest, Mr. Aki Choklat. Man, we've had a really awesome conversation. I've learned so much about you and about CCS and the future and the things that are happening. But I want to talk a little bit about your legacy and some interesting things that you have going on in your career as well outside of CCS. You wrote a book a few years back, I believe. It's called Footwear Design. Covers everything from foot anatomy to pattern making to pretty much all things footwear. Oh, there it is right there. Go cop the book. And tell me a little bit about the book. What was your reasoning for doing it? What inspired you to do it? Let me hear what you have to say.
Well, the inspiration for the book was students. I used to do PDFs and hand them out, and then I had to update the PDFs, and then I had a whole stack of them, and I thought, well, I might as well put them into a book. And I went to I've actually done 4 books, and I went to show my first book in a book show, and they were not interested. And then when they heard that I was in footwear, they were like, oh, And then I said, well, I have this idea for a footwear book. And they were like, yeah, we're interested in that. So the first book was out, didn't happen. And then the footwear book came to be. And it's been almost 10 years now. So I'm going to do an updated version of that because, like we talked, everything has changed, in the past few years.
Yeah. Is the book something that you recommend to the students and that they do get, or is it a requirement?
Well, actually, it is. It's full of exercises, creative exercises. It is about how to take your research and translate it into a product. Yeah. So it's that whole journey, and there's a lot of exercises. So it is required for one of my classes, but we do have a free version at CCS, so students can download it.
That's awesome. I just love the message that you're sending about pushing the making portion of it, right? Like footwear, creating footwear, designing footwear is more than just putting pen to paper. It's a beautiful part. And as you have those wonderful sketches behind you, but there's so much more that happens behind it. And I just have so much appreciation for you and pushing that part of the creation side of it. I feel like it's not something you really hear or talk much about. And that's what the Kicks Factory is about, is also promoting the creation and the making and making it fun again. It's not this part of the shoe business that's something that I have to drag myself to the factory and like get myself, like, it can be fun, and that's exactly what you're doing, and I love that. But with that said, sneakers are massive right now. You kind of mentioned it, alluded to it earlier, that like all of a sudden this boom just happened and everybody wants to be a sneaker designer. Everyone wants to buy sneakers. Everyone wants to wear sneakers, from the 10-year-old kid to the 60-year-old mom. Tell me a little bit about some advice that you could give to a young person who's looking to break into the accessories and footwear or sneakers market, from student to professional. Tell me some advice that you may have for someone like that.
Well, you mentioned the key word earlier, which is construction and craft. So yes, you can design fantastic items in Gravity Sketch or in Procreate or whatever, but you still have to understand the three-dimensionality, which is a little bit in VR, but like the tactile three-dimensionality of footwear. Often students draw flat, and then I can instantly tell, well, it's not going to work when you actually build it around a last. So I think the advice for me is that you can just experiment with paper. You can, draw something and then experiment with paper. You can also do the whole shoe surgeon thing, where you can deconstruct a shoes and then reconstruct it, just to understand what the insole is, what a shank is. What is there glue? Is it dry? There's all sorts of things that it just makes you a better designer if you understand the ductility and the dimensionality of footwear.
Yeah, no, that's great. Shout out to Dom, aka the shoe surgeon. You were listening to the Kicks Factory. I am your host, Omar Bailey, here with Mr. Aki Choklat. I want to talk about education in footwear, and there's so many. I was recently on a Clubhouse chat with some good friends of mine, and we were talking about education this past week about in footwear, and there's so many different paths you can take. Some people who can go to school, someone like you just mentioned, the shoe surgeon, who kind of lifted himself up and and sort of created his own path without necessarily going to school. I feel like everyone has a different, you have a totally different story, how you got into it. I feel like there's no single way or right way in doing it. Do you think going to a school like CCS is the right path? Or do you think there's multiple ways to go about it? I'm curious to see how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, I'm a good example of how not to do it. Sinking a lot of money into production and glamour of fashion, and then kind of losing it all and not having any idea what to do next. So I'm obviously a firm believer of education. I mean, there are various other, educational paths you can take. Maybe some students, don't want to invest 4 years in a degree program. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so individual how to go about it. But I would definitely advise not just to start a brand just because you feel like it. I mean, that's that's problematic, because it's not laying on a fainting couch, drinking champagne and reading, the Vogue. I wish it was that, but it's absolutely not that.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of work, right, that goes into it. And if that is the path that you choose, you really have to be prepared for the not only financial investment, but the emotional investment that comes with that as well. And those times you're going to have more bad days than you're going to have good. And you're going to need that motivation to get you up on those bad days. So that's wonderful advice. And one other question I have for you is, if you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would some of that advice be?
The advice that I would give myself when I was younger is don't fight it. Let the winds of the world, lead you where you end up. And I'm a firm believer of destiny. Look at you and I. I've been following Kicks Factory before I even knew who you were. It was actually in Long Island, by the way. We were in a conference, and I was talking to somebody about CCS, and you said, "Did you say CCS?" I went there, and I was like, "What?" And then you talked about Kicks Factory, and I was like, "What?" So, I think that sort of the cosmos will lead you where you are. So that would be my advice for myself. It's like, don't stress, just go with the flow.
Incredible words from Mr. Aki Choklat. I love it. And unfortunately, that is the end of our conversation. It was we have reached the end of the show. It's been such an awesome experience in speaking with you and learning about your story and kind of the pivot into politics and Capitol Hill, and then starting in fashion, then going in that direction, then coming back into fashion, and then now the role that you're in at CCS. It's an unbelievable journey, and I know that there's so much more ahead of you, and I look forward to seeing it and look forward to catching up with you in Detroit too very soon. But thank you so much for your time and joining us today on the show. This is amazing. The listeners are going to love it. How can people get in contact with you if they wanted to reach out?
Oh, I'm very open. I'm on Instagram, Aki Choklat. You can also contact me through our CCS, Instagram, CCS_FAD for our department. Google me, email me. I'm here for you. And thank you, Kicks Factory. Thank you, Omar. It's been wonderful.
Appreciate that. Thank you again. And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining the show today, and we will see you next time.
Kadzukian. Check out all your Kadzukian favorites now. Download the Kadzukian app, available on Android and iOS.